I have a question about the sextile aspect, and it was mainly around interpretation. And she was saying that the sextile and the trine were sounding very similar to her, and she really wanted to know what the sextile was all about. So before we get into the sextile, I just want to go over the mathematics of it, of the actual aspect itself. So the sextile aspect is two planets that are 60 degrees away from each other. So you're talking about two signs. So if you've got a planet in Aries, then a planet in Gemini, or a planet in Aquarius are going to be sextiling the planet in Aries, as long as they're very, very tight in degree, very close in degree. So if you've got a planet in Virgo, a planet in Cancer, or a planet in Scorpio is going to be sextiling the planet in Virgo, very tight in degree. So I like to keep my orbs for sextiles, as I said, pretty tight. So 4 degrees is as far as I would go with the sextile. It is called a minor aspect, and so I like to keep the orbs a little bit tighter for the minor aspects. Now, a sextile is very, very different, I feel, than the trine. So the trine, the similarity with the trine, as far as like the two planets are concerned, is they're the same element. So we're talking about two planets in fire, two planets in air, two planets in earth, two planets in water. So you can see already that the elemental sort of familiarity between the two planets are going to help the trine in some way with a glide or a flow going on. But I always find that the trine lacks a little bit of punch. You could often heard about the trines being very lazy. You can get very lazy with your trines. I find you can always get look for the easy way out with trines. You get enabled a lot with trines. You can give them away as far as like getting people to do them for you. There's no kind of, there's no drive in the trine to really make it happen. So the flow that comes with the trine is up to you to really take advantage of it and to make the most of it. Where the sextile, on the other hand, the big difference with the sextile, on the other hand, is the sextile has got a bit of fizz going on. You know, the sextile has got a little bit of stimulus. The sextile has got a little bit of punch. And it's because when you're looking at the sextile doesn't have a similarity in element or mode. The similarity in the sextile is actually the gender. So you're looking at the yin or the yang in the chart. Two planets in yin or two planets in yang make up a sextile. And of course, they're the ones that are going to be next door to each other. The yang signs next door to each other and the yin signs next door to each other. And so when you're looking at yang in the chart, you're looking at fire and you're looking at air. They're yang. And when you're looking at yin in the chart, you're looking at water and you're looking at earth. So they're yin. So fire and air, you get it immediately, don't you? Fire and air, air, oxygen, it stimulates fire. It keeps the fire going. Fan the fire. So you can see the two planets in a yang sextile getting stimulated by being fanned, like fanning a fire. And so looking at the two yin, you got the earth and water. Now here's another way of being stimulated, but much more of an internal, much more of a nourishing and nurturing and growing kind of way. It's a healing way as water nourishes the earth. So that's the yin sextile going on. So you can see how these two planets feel in a certain way like they have something to offer each other. You know, they have something to offer each other as far as getting things going is concerned, getting things moving. It's a little bit like you've got the looks and I've got the brains. Let's make a bit of cash, that kind of thing. So these two planets kind of shake hands across the chart, and they kind of come to some kind of understanding, into cahoots with each other, of how they can bounce off each other well and give each other the best of what each other has to offer. So what I've got here is I've got a couple of charts that I will show you as examples with sextile, so you can see what I'm talking about. So here, first off, I've got Hugh Hefner's chart. And so there's Hugh Hefner's chart there. And so Hugh is an Aries. He's an Aries sun. It's in the seventh house, at the very tail end of the seventh house. It's right on the cusp of the eighth house. I've got a feeling that Hugh Hefner's more of an eighth house sun, to be honest. It's 4:20 p.m. and that's an Astro Data Bank time, so it's a AA rating, which means it's accurate. But then again, who knows? The documentation in the hospital could have been maybe 10, 15 minutes late. He comes across more of an eighth house sun than a seventh house sun to me, but we'll play with both. And can you see how the sun here is in a sextile down here to Jupiter in Aquarius in the fifth house? So there's the sextile going on there. 2 signs apart, 60 degrees, well, 1 degree away from 60 degrees. It's very, very tight. But can you see how the sun and Jupiter are stimulating each other with the signs that they're in and the houses that they're in? And so here we have the Aries need for action and excitement and drama in relationship. If it's in the seventh house, towards the eighth house, you get the feeling of the intensity that goes down with other people. Everything to do with the sexual side of things and the money side of things too would come into this, which is very much more Hugh. I know he's had good relationships, and I know he's had lots of relationships. I don't know if they've actually been good ones. But I know that he's probably had to play on that Aries level in relationships as well. He's very much a leader, very much an independent kind of guy, wants what he wants. And probably that's come out in relationships in a big way. And so you get a feeling of the sun getting stimulated big time by Jupiter down there in the fifth house. So Jupiter is stimulating the sun through its need for adventure, its need for experience, its need for expansion. And look at the house that it's in. It's in the house, of fun and of creativity, and the house of joy and sex, of all things. Children comes into this as well. But look at his life. His life has been built around this kind of stuff. He's made a living out of it, basically. And his whole livelihood is the Playboy Mansion. So it's built around the Jupiter-Sun sextile. The rest of his chart, of course, is just as important, but you can see how the Jupiter-Sun sextile plays out very, very strongly for him. It's also in the sign of Aquarius, so you get the feeling of someone being very left of center, nonconformist, taboo in a way. And Aquarius is very much group-oriented, so he's amongst a lot of bunnies, so to speak. And he puts it out there amongst the people in a big way as well. Puts it out amongst the masses. So he brings joy into people's lives through his sun and his Jupiter sextile. So let's have a look at another one. So the other one I've got here is Diana. Princess Diana. So people who are into astrology probably know this chart pretty well. But Diana's sextile is her sun, her Cancer sun. Everybody knows her Cancer sun in the 7th house. It's in sextile up there to Pluto. Pluto in the 8th house in Virgo. So here we have the sun and Pluto nourishing each other, stimulating each other, but more in the yin way, more in the nourishing way, and more in the healing kind of way, because we're talking about Cancer Virgo. So this is a very healing kind of sextile going on here. So this comes to the fore for me very much when she was incredibly brave and incredibly powerful in her own right, way back in the very early days of AIDS. In the very early days of AIDS, when people didn't even know what this disease was, we just knew it was killing people. We didn't know how it was contracted. We didn't know anything about it. And people were really scared to touch people who were dying from AIDS. Diana actually went to hospitals. She went to hospitals with men who were dying from AIDS, and she was actually shaking their hands and she was actually touching them. This was huge back then. Can you not see the sun and Pluto in the 8th house with that? Going into that really kind of dangerous territory to show how much she cared, to show how much she loved. It was very, very powerful, incredibly powerful for her to enter into this area, and everyone talked about how amazing she was. That is Sun Pluto stuff, and can you see how they both bounce off each other so beautifully in that incredibly healing way? You can also see it with the royal family, of course, too. You know, all the heavy-duty, intense drama that was created by her coming into the family, and the way she created the family, and the stuff that she had to go down with them, you know, as far as her power against their power was concerned. Money, of course, would have come into this too, you know. So she used this in many, many ways, and used this beautifully and so well. Incredible, incredible human being. So you get a feeling, can you all see how the sextile bounces off each other? As I said, it has got some kind of fizz to it. It feels more active. It feels more like it needs to manifest. It needs to do something, where the trine kind of, you know, goes down the road of being a tiny little bit more lackadaisical. So I hope the question was answered for the person who wanted to know a little tiny bit more about sextiles. I find them really, really fascinating. And if you do get into them in your own charts, get into them into your friends and family's charts, and really notice them, really notice how they work, and try to make the best of them, because that's what sextiles are all about. They're wanting to bounce off each other to make your life better.